Hello and welcome to episode number 20 of 11FS Spotlight. In this weekly show, we shine a spotlight on the best and brightest in the tech and financial services industry to try and understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think the future of the industry might look like. Today's show is brought to you by MyTech, digital identity verification trusted the world over. Secure more high valuable customers while reducing risks and costs with MyTech, a global leader and enterprise partner in identity verification technology. Just before we start, the British Bank Awards are just around the corner, and voting for 2021 is now open. So it's your time to have a say and decide who will be crowned the winner of the Oscars of the banking world. 11FS has been nominated for Consultancy of the Year and Pioneer of the Year, and we'd like you to vote for us. If you want to vote for us, head to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/British Bank Awards 2021. bit.ly British Bank Awards 2021. And I believe Hannah's putting that in the comments right now. So please vote for us. Go do it. I mean, you're online watching this. You could click it and you can make it happen. We believe in you and we thank you. Alrighty. On today's spotlight, I am delighted to be joined by Justin Bercich, who's head of artificial intelligence at Lucinity. Today, we're talking about the role that AI and human AI will play in shaping the 2020s. Justin, how's it going?
Very good. Great to be with you, Simon.
Really good to have you with us. You're coming to us from Iceland today, I believe.
Yes, we're based in Iceland, Lucinity. Been here for 2 years. Beautiful country, great people. And, we're starting to grow up operations around the world, but Lucinity is our home and base and very proud of it.
Good to have you with us. Truly an international spotlight as always. So audience, remember, leave all your comments in the sidebar. I think this is going to be a great show. AI, humans, anti-money laundering, let's unpack all of it. But before we do, could you get a little intro into Lucinity and what you guys do?
Sure. So at Lucinity, we use what we call human AI to strengthen our customers' defense against money laundering and financial crime. So this concept of human AI is about bringing together the best of human and artificial intelligence, this kind of symbiotic relationship that improves the shared capabilities of both. So, money laundering is a significant crime. It's the crime that fuels other crimes. Sexual exploitation, drug trafficking, human trafficking. It's a horrible crime, and it's manifested in around $2.7 trillion that are laundered through the global financial system every year. And if you can believe it, less than 1% of those criminal proceeds are actually caught by the authorities. So we actually believe at Lucinity that it's time that financial crime had a crisis. And what we've done at Lucinity is build a kind of core compliance platform that is revolutionizing how our clients detect money laundering and investigate these type of cases. So, we're focused on using cutting edge technology like explainable AI and deep learning to really detect complex money laundering activity in our clients, derive actionable insights. And what we do is we bring this knowledge through to our intuitive human AI case manager that really beautifully and aesthetically shows our investigators why we think or why our algorithms think this is money laundering. And then they go ahead, investigate the case. And if they believe that it's suspicious, that warrants what's been called reported as a SAR, suspicious activity report, they'll send that across to the regulator. So, we've got a lot of experience in compliance and banking, and we know this industry is a hard grind. There's significant pressure on compliance teams and banks to not only operate within an evolutionary regulatory environment, but also make sure that they're meeting the regulations and not let any financial crime slip through their bank. So, we're very passionate about what we do here at Lucinity, our team. We want to work with our clients to tackle financial crime, to build beautiful software, and ultimately, hit our mission of making money good.
Indeed, and anti-money laundering is one of those terms that doesn't sound as important as it is, but I can almost always find a way in which a cause you care about is linked to anti-money laundering. It's like the most morose parlor game ever. Like if you care about preventing terrorist financing, or if you care about preventing human trafficking, there will be a cause that is really quite horrific that anti-money laundering prevention measures could really help make a meaningful impact on. It's possibly the most impactful thing we can work on in financial services. So credit to you guys for doing that. When you were talking as well about the beautiful case manager and the AI, contrast that with today, what banks are often dealing with and what people are dealing with today's tools, the historic tools that are really out there to prevent, detect, and then indeed report everything that's happening in money laundering?
Well, it's a great question, and we do really have this clear dichotomy between these legacy systems and these new age fintech Lucinity type systems that are trying to innovate in this space. So, we believe that AI is a catalyst for change in our industry, and a catalyst for innovation as well. And the way that current legacy systems work is that they apply what's called rules. So, for example, if you transact over $1,000, you may be, have an alert generated against your name for that transaction. So if you've ever gone on an expensive holiday or bought a car or transferred money to a relative, it's more than likely possible that a legacy system has actually sent an alert through about you. So, these old legacy systems also aren't very intuitive in their case management, in the way that the investigators analyze and investigate money laundering. They're kind of like a large Excel spreadsheet with a lot of tabs and a series of financial reports that don't really make sense. They don't bring context through to the investigator as to why the system actually thinks this is money laundering. So, yeah, at Lucinity, it's really about reducing the noise. We know that only 1% of money laundering is caught. In fact, 200,000 man hours are spent on false positive reviews every day, to give you some context of the problem that we're facing. And we're founded on the principle that this industry needs innovation, and humans don't operate within rigid framework of rules. We have nuances to us. We have diversity in our individual actions and how we operate every day. So rather than thinking of detecting money laundering from a rule perspective, we take a behavioral approach, an artificial intelligence approach that really brings this true potential of AI for one of the first times into the compliance sphere and helps us improve our clients' outcomes.
It's interesting that with a rules-based approach, two people doing the same thing could be doing so for entirely legitimate reasons, one for entirely illegitimate reasons, but they have completely different behavior patterns, and they have, as an account or the time of day they're doing it, or there are all of these other factors that play into it, as you say. I want to bring in your time at the FCA as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how working inside of a regulator really colored some of this perspective?
Sure. Look, I was very proud of seeing my former colleagues at the FCA, their drive and motivation to really protect the financial system. It was an invigorating experience. I can't talk highly enough of the regulators and the cultural shift that's happened over the last, I'd say, decade, moving towards a more data-first approach or a data-driven approach to policy formulation and monitoring. So at the FCA, through my PhD there, I charted this path towards adopting artificial intelligence and machine learning at the organization. And what this allowed them to do was holistically analyze all these humongous amounts of data to more effectively formulate policy and monitor banks. And I think it's this key shift in this cultural change in, rather than retroactively or retrospectively responding to crisis, the FCA has been able to pivot and actually proactively develop policy, proactively develop programs based on data. So we understand that regulators play a key part in the financial system, and I suppose one of the core beliefs at Lucinity is that we see the financial system as a key pillar of modern civilization. It's something that has created extreme wealth and opportunity for a lot of people. It comes with its challenges, but it has enabled millions of people to really start to interact in the global economy and get finance and get credit and open a bank account and really start to interact and trade across borders. So we believe that protecting the financial system and going along our mission of making money good is not just beneficial for our clients, but actually for society as a whole. And we love partnering and working with regulators and our clients to do that.
I think the color and background of regulators shift is really, really important, because quite often you will hear from banks and others, we want to do that new thing, but the regulator won't let us. And actually, the reality is probably the opposite. The regulator has no issue. It's just somebody somewhere thinks the regulator doesn't want them to, and that's an interesting thing to bump into. Talking of all of that, you have a PhD in philosophy. So how's that shaped your career and what you're doing today?
Sure. It's been a key part, I think, of both an intellectual awakening and a part of my career progression, because what I did was I did my PhD in artificial intelligence and deep learning, but I did an industry PhD. So I worked across the FCA. I did projects with the Bank of England. I did projects with other financial institutions. And what this allowed me to do was gain a deep understanding of the regulatory environment, but also the financial ecosystem. And I guess most importantly, applying artificial intelligence algorithms and specifically explainable AI algorithms to trillions of data points. This is quite a challenging task, and it's really was a learning experience to understand how important it is to derive unique and actionable insights from very complex data. So I like to say it's about bringing order from chaos. Drawing intelligence out of complex data was really the challenge. And I would say the most important part of the PhD is understanding that you need to surface a human message out of complex data. And this is one skill set that you really gain as you do a PhD. I would also make one other point. When you do a PhD as well, you do immerse yourself in a topic. And artificial intelligence has been my life, a large part of my life for a long time. And what I've learned over that period is that this is going to be something key that's going to drive the next decade. Mm-hmm. And as humans, we all have to learn to interact with it and understand it. And there's a lot of power that sits behind these algorithms and people that design them and build them and train them. And this message of at Lucinity that we have this AI for good message, I think, needs to really be thought of. And I hope it resonates with people, because you have power, with powerful tools, comes responsibility, and taking this AI for good approach, I think, is key. And that's definitely the key thing I took out of my PhD.
No, it as we've seen, there's a real pushback now against sort of techniques to keep people clicking and scrolling, and kind of the effectiveness of keeping people outraged that an algorithm can identify, but also the social cost of having done so, versus applying that algorithm for things that may have more socially responsible causes, I think is really, really powerful. And then also unpacking that as well, kind of being effective at taking those algorithms and allowing a human to do something about the output, rather than just automatically kind of hooking somebody to the next click, I think is a really interesting kind of dichotomy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
I was going to say, if we talk about that sort of like how you've alluded a couple of times to how AI and humans play a role together. You've got a term you call human AI. What is that? Sure.
We believe it's a very important term. And to us, human AI is about synergistically bringing together the associative memory, the kind of brilliant cognitive power of humans with the technological prowess of machines to really advance our joint capabilities. We as humans are very highly efficient at conducting abstract tasks and painting great pictures and composing beautiful music and really making contextual decisions, right? So we consider a lot of variables when we make decisions, hopefully most of the time. Conversely, machines are really about executing this repetitive task over and over again. Rather, sort of complex mathematical tasks or doing computational processes or whatever it is, in a way that humans find very difficult to do. And we just cannot simply measure up to some of their power, and they simply can't measure up to some of our power. So bringing those two together is key. A bit of an interesting side note is a little bit about how we maintain memory in both humans and machines. And this is actually starting to, if you can believe it, starting to meld together. As humans, we interact with our environment, we learn, we take actions, we make decisions, and we learn from those. And what happens in our brain is a process of heaping plasticity, where all our neurons connect when we're doing something to form a memory. And when we see this environment again, we make kind of a similar decision. And you probably see yourself making the same kind of decisions when you see something. And in the same way, models now, artificial intelligence models, over the last probably half decade, have actually been able to learn a similar way. So they generally are trained by humans initially and designed by humans, but they're able to learn as new data or new information comes into their system and update the model and the weights and basically how they make predictions and how they make decisions. And you're starting to see this melding between the two concepts. And we believe this human AI is important, right? The 2020s is going to be a decade of change. We've not just with COVID, but more so generally with this new technology. And the age of AI has arrived, and it's omnipresent in our lives. You mentioned, Simon, a few cases, but it recommends your next Netflix movie. It tells you what websites to look at when you search for them in Google. And we believe we need to shift this framework slightly so that AI basically benefits humans. And Lucinity, tackling financial crime, it's the same process. We need to actually use the best of humans and artificial intelligence to really get the best outcomes.
I think that thing you started with what's a human good at, what's a machine good at, is a theme that hasn't been fully fleshed out in many places, and it's interesting that you're playing with it. And there's a great work by Paul Titterton, who you'll find on LinkedIn if you look for him, that he did a few years ago, called "What's the Competitive Advantage of a Human in the Machine Age?" And he talks about all the things you would expect in psychology: creativity, problem solving, empathy, the types of things that machines typically or historically are quite bad at. Maybe GPT-3 can fake it, but humans still have a massive edge in that stuff. And actually, kind of that creativity and problem solving with context that sits around the data is still something that humans have that massive edge in. Do you think, as we ground this in banking, can you bring that to life in a way that works for anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing? What the machines can help us with versus what humans might be able to find?
Great question. It's something that is driving conversations both at the board level and at the water cooler level, right? Mm-hmm. A statistic, I think it was by Open Text, a survey found that 80% of banks are aware of the AI benefits, aware of benefits from AI. McKinsey recently came out with a report that said that banks could realize up to $1 trillion in value by applying AI methodology. So the conversations are happening, and they're being driven by what we're seeing in Silicon Valley, what we're seeing around the world in these innovative companies that are using algorithms to improve how we previously did things. In banking, there's straight out benefits that can be realized from artificial intelligence, from productivity enhancements to improving the customer experience, to recommending better products and accounts, and also in the Lucinity sphere, which is risk management, right? Our banks aren't capable of analyzing millions of customers and billions of transactions every day. We need algorithms to actually help us and to empower our companies, our clients and our investigators to make, as you said before, contextual information, draw the order from the chaos, draw the contextual information out that they really need to look at to make that very important decision of whether someone is or isn't doing money laundering. So, there's, I think, a lot of applications. I would like to point out that we also see this potential for realizing these gains from innovation, right? You sometimes don't know the benefits and the insights and the actionable intelligence you can gather from your data if you're not analyzing them, right? So if the banks, they traditionally have only analyzed a smaller proportion of their data, and as you do more, you can gain more insights and understand more about your customers. So it's definitely an interesting change, and I think the banking industry is ready, and I think the conversation is being had right now.
And on that, though, I do think you hinted at something there in terms of data access, data quality. There's some hygiene factors that you have to have in place to get these benefits. What are those hygiene factors? And have you seen, what have organizations that have done this well, that maybe banks, that maybe incumbents, done in order to succeed?
Okay, so I would say there's a few elements to that. I would say at the highest level, having a data-first approach in your bank, especially incumbent banks, is critical. There are fintechs that are starting to move into this sphere. I believe it was one of the large Wall Street CEOs that said recently that they're scared of fintechs coming into their sphere. They're starting to be quite competitive. So incumbent banks need to slowly move towards this data-first approach. Fintechs are already doing it. And there's a few elements to that, right? So having a scalable API architecture to ingest data and move data around your organization is key. And we've seen a lot of banks do that already. APIs are the connective tissue that really builds build the kind of tunnels between different data stores in an organization. The obvious problems that we have with banks, and we all know it, things like data silos, unstructured data, sort of messy internal processes, potentially sort of minimal incentive for innovation. These do create risks. So it's about taking these steps towards becoming, data first. The obvious other ones are, your cloud infrastructure in general, have an intelligent cloud infrastructure, start to leverage some of the power of private clouds to do your analytics, do some of your analysis, and just in general, work towards having this data management and data first approach. I think that's the first easy, not so much easy, but the low hanging fruit that banks can take to really, use artificial intelligence in the future.
No, I think it's so important to say that, because I think people want the benefits of AI quite often without putting in the work, and underestimate how hard everything you just said actually is to achieve, and can spend a lot of time and energy trying to get the benefits they see in a McKinsey report without having the prerequisites in place. And we need to focus on the prerequisites and getting those hygiene factors in place, because I think then you can start to unleash some of what you're talking about. Or there are specialist solutions as well that can just drop into where you're already doing this stuff and kind of help you around the edges, like you say, with some of the fintech stuff. I just want to give a shout out to the audience. If you have any questions, do make sure you throw those in. I'm looking at my show notes. I'll keep an eye out for them. Burning questions, throw them at me. But if not, Justin, I wanted to ask you about compliance teams, especially. There's been a lot of pressure on financial crime and AML regs and fines in the past couple of decades. You previously wrote an article about how the new transaction threshold in the US means any transaction over $250 will have to be investigated manually. How do banks cope with that?
Oof, it's challenging. Now we're seeing kind of these multiple messages coming through from regulators. It is this, hey, you need to monitor every single transaction under a certain threshold or above a certain threshold. But also we want you to be more efficient. We don't want you to waste time on menial tasks. So it's a confusing environment. How do you manage such a difficult task as analyzing millions and billions of transactions to come to a conclusion on is your bank clean? And obviously at Lucinity, we believe this AI-first approach is key. So I would say for compliance teams, the big challenge is, to be blunt, fatigue. They're conducting an analysis, an investigation, day after day after day, going through very complex alerts and patterns of activity, and ultimately they have to come to a very important decision at the end of the day that's key for society to function, right? They're the gatekeepers to the financial world. And at Lucinity, it's about how can we help them? And our key is about bringing context through to the investigator. So not only are they seeing and understanding exactly why the algorithm determined that this is money laundering, but we actually talk to them through our human AI advisor. So we bring forward this case and we say, hey, we believe this actor is conducting money laundering. We tell them exactly what type of money laundering that we think they're doing, what behavior they're doing. And we tell them why the algorithm rose it. And as you'll see, when our investigators work with our platform, they actually interact with the artificial intelligence. They send it feedback, it sends through information. It's almost like a conversation. As you go through your Facebook feed, you see the comments slowly growing. And it's the same concept with our investigators. They go through the case and the investigator talks to them and they discuss things. This is a really important part of how artificial intelligence and humans are going to interact in the future. If we don't trust artificial intelligence, we won't work with it, right? And if artificial intelligence doesn't get feedback and intellectual knowledge from humans, it won't improve. So this kind of symbiotic relationship, I think, is key. And when you can work with some technology that is intelligent and comes to the right conclusions and has a conversation with you, you can trust it. So we think this is a key thing. As banks have increased regulatory challenges, they need the help to make their compliance function smoother and more productive, and, to be honest, easier.
And I think that making life easier for those folks, because it feels like there's been a lot of stick, but what's missed between the lines is the carrot. Like, yes, there are new solutions. Like we don't mind you adopting the new technology, whereas sort of post 2008 and with a lot of the fin crime fines that happened then, the investment was really in people and bodies and throwing people at it. And actually, do you think that the switch to digital is something that you're starting to see and hear that has that message landed inside a lot of the incumbents, or are we still early in that process?
No, I really think the message has landed. We're having a conversation with a lot of banks, both incumbents, excuse me, and fintechs that really gel with this message of using artificial intelligence. But I think it's important to say it's a stepped approach.
Mm-hmm.
Banks have a very complex core technology, and it's not something that you can change overnight. It's something you need to work together towards improving over time. So I really think we need to use artificial intelligence in this stepped approach, especially at banks. And that's genuinely how I see it playing out in the next couple of years. So I think it should be an exciting time.
I hope so too. I think my final question for you is like, what are you hopeful for, Justin? What do you think the next few years play out like? Are we going to see sort of people really grasping this nettle and kind of making a difference? And what are the challenges on the way to getting there?
So over the next couple of years, I think people are going to start to ask these questions around what is the source of their money. So we genuinely know, most of us know where the source of our avocado is. We know whether our car is a carbon emitter. We know certain important societal questions about what we do every day. And I think when you go to get a loan from a bank, or when you go to basically or bank with someone or use a financial service, you want to know that the source of your money is clean. So I think that there's going to be a bit of a societal push over the next couple of years to really, drive towards making money good and, improving the financial system. So adoption of artificial intelligence is one part of that. And, improving the life and quality of life of investigators and compliance teams is another part of that. But I think it's really going to be about society coming together and trying to improve some of these outcomes as one. So there's going to be challenges for banks as well. And, I really do think that these conversations are being had and that they really are up to speed. Most of the banks really are up to speed. And I think that we're just going to see this slow adoption over time. And yeah, like I said, a very exciting time.
It is, and let's hope that after this as well, more people adopt it. Again, there are many, many good causes that are related to preventing terrorist financing and anti-money laundering. So let's if the technology's out there, then why not? Okay, everybody, that's coming to the end of the show. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining me. Where can people learn about you and everything you're getting up to?
Great. So lucinity.com is our website, and hit us up on LinkedIn as well. So if you have any questions, just contact us through there.
Please do, people. And that's all we have time for this week. Make sure to follow 11FS on LinkedIn so you never miss a single episode. Spotlight will be back next Thursday. Have a great week, everybody.